Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'm afraid that unlike John, I speak no Japanese, so apologies for that. My name's Alex Greenway. I work in the UK's Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, and I'm going to be speaking about the UK's approach to civil nuclear deployment. So I'm hoping that through the presentation you will see a changing kind of culture in the UK around nuclear energy. It definitely feels like a much more kind of positive and dynamic time to work in nuclear in the UK at the moment. You can probably see here that we're starting in quite a negative place. So at its peak, nuclear provided about 30% of the UK's electricity demand. But at the moment, we've only got 5 operating plants, and 4 of those will be retiring by the end of the decade. So we'll be left with 1. Previously, UK government's attitude was to sort of let the market deliver nuclear. So we had something called a developer-led model. And what that ended up with is 1 nuclear project coming forward. So Hinkley Point C in the West Country of the UK is currently under construction. But I think we had a bit of a wake-up call that that's perhaps not a sustainable model. And so the UK government has changed its attitude to become more active in the nuclear space. So here we have just a word on kind of so this is a sort of word on terminology. So just to be difficult, in the UK we speak about small modular reactors and advanced modular reactors slightly differently than other countries. So small modular reactors, if you hear us talking about it, is referring to existing sort of light water technology, and advanced modular reactors are sort of generation 4 innovative fuels and cooling systems tends to be what we're speaking about there. We've embraced the kind of full technology spectrum now. So we have a program of gigawatt reactors under construction. So Hinkley Point C I've already mentioned, and we've also just started a capital raise for Sizewell C, both the European pressurized water reactors, and they will be built by EDF. We've got small modular reactors, advanced modular reactors, and then eventually nuclear fusion we consider as well. So, like I said, we've had a bit of an attitude shift in UK government, but it's certainly an evolution rather than a revolution, so it's been kind of slow progress. You can see on the screen now 4 key policy documents. So these are kind of UK government publications setting out our ambition for our nuclear industry. Firstly, we've got the 10-point plan over on the left-hand side. So in the 10-point plan, we set out our ambition to bring 1 gigawatt project to final investment decision by the end of this parliament, which is the end of 2024. And we also committed to AMR and SMR demonstrators by the early 2030s. And we attached some funding to that as well. So we've got 385 million in the Advanced Nuclear Fund. 215 million of that is for small modular reactors, and 170 million we've put towards advanced modular reactors development and demonstration program. Next, we've got the net zero strategy. So this included 1.7 billion of direct government funding towards bringing that gigawatt project to final investment decision this parliament. We also set up something called the Future Nuclear Enabling Fund. So that was 120 million pounds to try to address some of the barriers that industry was telling us were there to enter the UK market. This was followed up by the British Energy Security Strategy. So this was actually a really key one for us, because it set an ambition that I don't think any of us were expecting. So this is the up to 24 gigawatts of civil nuclear power by 2050, and that's going to be 25% of projected electricity demand. So you can you can probably see from our kind of 1 gigawatt project or one operating reactor by the end of this decade to 24 gigawatts is quite an ambitious jump. We also set out our ambitions for the next parliament, so that will be the next 5 years after 2024, and we've committed to 2 final investment decisions on 2 projects, one of which will be an SMR project, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. And we also announced a new arm's length body from government called Great British Nuclear, which is aiming to be a kind of delivery body and speaks again to that point around government taking a more active role in kind of bringing projects online. The final and most recent publication is Powering Up Britain, so the one on the right-hand side. So this formalised the launch of Great British Nuclear. It also launched a competitive process for small modular reactor down selection, which Great British Nuclear ran. And it also set out our intention to include nuclear in our green taxonomy framework, but that's kind of subject to ongoing discussions. So I mentioned before about something that we call in the UK the ambition gap. So you can see kind of where we are now, where we want to be with that 24 gigawatts in 2050, and that kind of gap in the middle. And this table is kind of working on the assumption of Hinkley Point C and Sizewell C sort of coming online. So we've got the 16.4 gigawatt, 16.4 gap, which we're going to need to address. This is just a bit more detail on the kind of trajectory of how we're aiming to get there, so you can see where we are at the moment, see it kind of dropping off towards the end of the decade, and then the hope of kind of Sizewell coming online a bit later. So bearing in mind that ambition gap and the huge challenge that we've got in the UK to kind of reach that 24 gigawatt ambition, we have to look at the whole kind of gambit of technologies to bring forward. And that's why we've put kind of quite a lot of money from government into different developing different types of technologies. So both of the small modular reactor and the advanced modular reactor, the Gen 4 projects as well. So SMRs, we see these as kind of closer to deployment and more realistic for kind of this decade or early 2030s. We have recently completed the first stage of the technology selection process, so that was run by Great British Nuclear, and have selected 6 vendors to progress to the next stage, so they'll be invited to submit some more information to government, and then there's going to be a decision point next year about which ones to take forward. So yeah, and interestingly as well, this is the first time, probably in a very long time, probably decades, that UK government is also supporting the export of technologies overseas, because we've not had kind of our own indigenous technology to promote in a very long time, and now we kind of have Rolls-Royce SMR amongst others, so we're kind of engaging in promoting them to overseas customers, nuclear newcomers. I've mentioned Great British Nuclear already, so I won't kind of touch on this too much. The only other thing to add is that the launch of GBN kind of shows quite a different approach from UK government of how we're approaching risk and kind of cost sharing between investors and consumers. So it's just kind of another demonstration of UK government kind of trying to work with industry to push forward development of projects rather than kind of waiting for things to happen. The focus of today is more about the Generation 4 reactors, so I'll sort of talk a bit more in detail about this slide. You've already heard that the UK and Japan, so our National Nuclear Laboratory and JEA, are taking forward a project through the UK's Advanced Modular Reactor Development and Demonstration Programme, which is really exciting. Our sort of key, after quite a lot of consultation, the UK's kind of key criteria for selecting HTGR as our technology preference was about heat output, but also sort of timescales to deployment. So it would be really helpful to have JEA and their experience of operating the HTTR in Japan for so long, sort of in that program, and it's very exciting. Just a word on kind of the nuclear fuel cycle. In the UK, we experienced the instability following Russia's invasion of Ukraine quite acutely. Our homes are generally heated using gas, and so we kind of felt quite, as did the rest of the world, but we felt a kind of real hit on consumers on the price of gas, and I think that kind of changed the mindset in government as well. So we've got decades of experience in nuclear fuel production in the UK, as well as enrichment. So we've got Springfields, which Westinghouse operates, which is the fuel production side, and Capenhurst, operated by Urenco, which is our enrichment site. We've recently put quite a lot of government funding into protecting our capabilities in the nuclear fuel cycle and expanding them. So we had the Future Nuclear Enabling Fund that I mentioned, but also the Nuclear Fuel Fund, which is aimed at developing new fuel production capabilities in the UK. So that's for current and future reactors. And it wouldn't feel right to speak about civil nuclear deployment without touching on safety, security, and non-proliferation. So this is just to say we continue to obviously work very closely with the IEA to promote, especially when we think about advanced nuclear reactors and the deployment of advanced nuclear to newcomer countries. We're working very closely with the IEA and like-minded partners to make sure that's done in a safe and secure way. On regulation, I think there might be some more on this tomorrow, so I won't go into it too much. But the regulators in the UK, so the ONR, the Office for Nuclear Regulation, they have a sort of outcome, they call it an outcome regulated approach. So it's supposed to be an approach which can kind of help to regulate innovation. And they're thinking very hard about kind of how you have to adapt the regulatory system to encourage innovation in the advanced nuclear sphere. And so on financing, I said before about kind of a slightly more realistic attitude between risk sharing between investors and consumers. That's seen in the way that we're going to try to finance Sizewell C. So we are bringing forward something called the Nuclear Regulated Asset Base model, which is aiming to unlock kind of private investment in new nuclear projects. And the capital raise for that is going on at the moment. I understand that you're also speaking about skills tomorrow, so I won't go on about this too much either. But I think a key thing for us in the UK is that we've got challenges that are sort of shared globally. So an aging workforce, high attrition rate, increasing demand, and increasing global command for skills and capabilities. We've established a nuclear skills task force in the UK. So this is to aim to develop a nuclear skills strategic plan, create kind of job opportunities, apprenticeships, engagement with schools and universities. And that's me. I think I was a little bit quick, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be very happy to answer them.
いかがでしょうか。ご質問会場内からお受けいただいておりますが、どうぞご遠慮なく挙手でお知らせください。いかがでしょう。はい、ではマイクをお持ちいたします。少しお待ちください。
ご講演ありがとうございます。今文部科学省の井出と申します。先ほどご講演されておっしゃっていた核燃料サイクルのところなんですけれど、イギリスの中で、今再処理工場のソープとかはもう廃止になって、でその後でイギリスの核燃料サイクルっていうのはどっちの方向にそれをやるのかやらないのかっていうのはどっちの方向に今後向かっていくんでしょうか。そのあたりちょっとわからないところがあったので、もう少し教えていただければと思います。
Yeah, so currently the policy of the UK government is that we could have an once through nuclear fuel cycle, or we could go back to reprocessing and a closed nuclear fuel cycle. So that's going to be decided in the next few years by government.
よろしいでしょうか。はい、ありがとうございます。では後方マイクをお持ちいたしますのでお願いします。
Thank you very much. Any effort to maintain the technology that UK developed, the gas, the CO2, or expand on it?
No, not that I've heard about. I think there was such a huge gap between construction of the last gas-cooled reactor and Hinkley Point C, and obviously sort of Sizewell C was a different type of reactor again. So I think we're kind of moved away from the gas-cooled reactors now.
よろしいでしょうか。はい、ではマイクをお持ちいたしますのでお願いいたします。
Thank you so much. I'm Satoru Yasuroka, Meti, maybe your counterparts. My question is regarding the GDA, General Design Assessment Process. Actually, that's the exact point I would like to learn from your activity. So my question is very simple. As you mentioned, now Rolls-Royce SMR is kind of the first mover, the comer jumping in the GDA process. But how your ministry, your DESNZ facilitate or involve in this process? Basically, so it should be a ONR regulatory body and so vendors or like that. So yes, that's my question, and maybe can be applicable to the HTGR or next step in the phase C or afterward.
In the sort of regulation processes,
Yes,
how does
yes.
government involved?
Maybe
So-
promoting government.
Yeah,
like a
so
DESNZ.
Rolls-Royce has just completed the first phase of the generic design assessment, which is the kind of the first element of the UK's regulatory system. In terms of future technologies and how they engage with the ONR, we're going to be doing an alternative routes to market consultation this autumn, so that will be kind of government run, and part of that is going to be about how to engage with the regulators and the kind of processes around that. So that will be the first thing. Apart from that, we just sort of encourage all vendors to go and speak to our regulators. They're very open to discussing the processes, and UK government will kind of support those conversations as far as possible as well.
Okay, thank you so much. That sounds the best practice for me. Yeah, thank you.
ありがとうございます。その他ご質問いかがでしょう。はい、ではマイクをお持ちいたします。そちらお願いします。
ありがとうございます。福井大の宇野と申します。大学の人間です。最後から2枚目のパワーポイントで、日本語でいうとこの原子力技能タスクフォースというのを紹介されてますけど、これは英国が、英国の企業の人材育成を支援するという、そういう制度でしょうか。大学ではなくてという。
I think the aim is for it to be across kind of businesses and education. So I think it's the aim of the task force is to address the skills gap. So I think that will come from educating tiny kids in nuclear and kind of doing school outreach all the way up to universities, apprenticeships, that kind of thing, as well as kind of working with businesses to understand the skills gaps in industry.
はい、ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。その他いかがでしょうか。少しお時間残していただいておりますので、あとお一方お二方お受けできるかと思いますが、いかがでしょう。皆様よろしいでしょうか。はい、それではご講演をいただきましたグリーンウェイ様、ありがとうございました。今一度大きな拍手をお送りください。Thank you so much.